A story that may have been too dark for Disney, controversial songs, and in-joke Easter eggs are what you're about to learn in the next 13 minutes. This is the untold truth of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. In 1993, Disney Dream Team Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise got a phone call from then-chairman of Walt Disney Studios, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who informed them they would be directing an adaptation of Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Wise and Trousdale had a short but colorful history with the company. They collaborated directly for the first time on The Rescuers Down Under, from which they were both fired. But they reunited for their directorial debut, Beauty and the Beast, which proved to be an enormous success. It became the first animated feature to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, and won Oscars for Best Original Score and Best Original Song. Wise and Trousdale took a break from directing after the grueling Beauty process. But once Katzenberg ordained Hunchback as their follow-up, they became determined to push the boundaries of animation like never before. Despite its reputation for delivering happily ever afters, Disney frequently draws on grim source material. Even so, Victor Hugo's 1831 novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, might be the least obvious choice for cartoon adaptation they could have possibly gone with. Hugo's tome is a chronicle of human tragedy, and it's one that has had more faithful film adaptations in the past. In the original story, Archdeacon Frollo and Quasimodo both fall in love with Esmeralda, as they do in the Disney version. But in the original, Frollo orders Quasimodo to kidnap her. This plan is thwarted and Quasimodo is arrested. In time, Esmeralda falls in love with Phoebus, who is considerably less charming than he is in Disney's adaptation. Frollo makes an attempt on his life, for which Esmeralda is blamed. After Esmeralda refuses his advances, Frollo hands her over to the authorities. Powerless, Quasimodo can only watch as she is hanged. Filled with rage and grief, he hurls Frollo to his death, then vanishes. Years later, his skeleton is found clutching hers in a mass pauper's grave. Not exactly the most obvious choice for Disney, and the changes they had to make to turn it into a Disney story would prove controversial. Where better to learn how to bring Paris to life on screen than Paris itself? Early into production, the core Hunchback team set up a studio in the City of Lights to gather inspiration from both the location and from the author himself.
Victor Hugo lived just a few miles from the studio, about 165 years ago. Great name, by the way. Victor Hugo.
They were even allowed unprecedented access to Notre Dame. Kirk Wise can precisely recall the moment he discovered the feeling he wanted the movie to conjure. Listening to this pipe organ in this shadowy cathedral with light filtering through the stained glass windows, I could feel it thudding in my chest. A similar moment inspired lyricist Stephen Schwartz to write Out There. With composer Alan Menken's tune already in place, he sat in the bell tower early in the morning before the public was allowed in. Schwartz looked out over Paris and felt himself fully inhabit Quasimodo's world, saying, "By the time we left Paris, the song was written." The filmmakers went through hellfire to cast the voice of Quasimodo. One unexpected candidate was legendary rocker Meat Loaf, who auditioned for the directors and composer Alan Menken. He was reportedly great, but didn't fit their idea of the role. The most memorable audition, however, came courtesy of Mandy Patinkin, best known for The Princess Bride and Homeland. In what has since been dubbed the Patinkin Incident, the actor arrived at his audition with his own accompanist. Moreover, this accompanist had rearranged the audition song. These etiquette breaches didn't go down well with Menken and lyricist Stephen Schwartz, and when Patinkin took too long to get through his audition, tempers flared into open argument. Disney ended up choosing Tom Hulse, who was actually nervous about taking the role. But when the directors heard his audio for the scene in which Quasimodo releases a bird he's been nursing, they knew he was the guy they'd been looking for. The take was so heartfelt that it not only got him the part, it's the one used in the movie. In the mid-90s, Demi Moore was one of the most in-demand movie stars in Hollywood. Having found fame as a member of the so-called Brat Pack, Moore went on to star in hits including Ghost, A Few Good Men, and Indecent Proposal. However, she wasn't Jeffrey Katzenberg's #1 choice for the role of Esmeralda. As supervising animator and storyboarder Will Finn told /Film, the executive wanted Cher for the role. Even Wise and Trousdale didn't think of approaching Moore, but only because they didn't know they could. When they told Katzenberg they were thinking of, quote, a Demi Moore type person for the role, Katzenberg asked why they didn't just get Moore. Trousdale admitted, "We didn't know we were allowed to." Reports about more being demanding turned out to be false. As detail-oriented Disney fans will note, however, Esmeralda's singing voice was provided by Broadway star Heidi Mollenhauer. Most Disney movies contain an element of comic relief, often in the form of silly sidekicks. Hunchback leans on this trope too, via Esmeralda's goat Jolly, Phoebus's horse Achilles, and Quasimodo's gargoyle friends. But introducing singing gargoyles into a story this intense didn't go down well with everybody. The gargoyles' personalities changed dramatically throughout production. Initially, they were going to be voiced by three of the era's most famous late show hosts, Jay Leno, David Letterman, and Arsenio Hall. Cyndi Lauper and Sam McMurray were also nearly cast until Roy Disney himself vetoed them. Ultimately, the gargoyles were played by Charles Kimbrough, Mary Wickes, and Jason Alexander, with Jane Withers providing additional dialogue after Wickes tragically passed away. Some viewers felt that goofy gargoyles don't fit the movie's intense subject matter. As it turns out, some people who worked on the movie agreed. In Slash Film's Oral History of Hunchback, then president of Disney Feature Animation Peter Schneider described their presence as, quote, icky, while writer Brenda Chapman said, "I wasn't sure if I liked how it ended up." Though the entire movie pushes boundaries, there are two songs in Hunchback audiences find especially shocking. The first is Hellfire, in which Frollo struggles between bigoted piety and overpowering lust for Esmeralda. The original storyboards even depicted the vision of Esmeralda who dances in the flames as naked. That idea was shot down, but to everyone's surprise, the studio changed nothing else. The demonic judges, the references to burning desire, the use of crucifixion imagery, Disney was willing to back it all. The other eyebrow-raising song is controversial for very different reasons. A Guy Like You, performed by Quasimodo and the Gargoyles, is a major tonal deviation from the rest of the movie. Lyricist Stephen Schwartz was always unenthusiastic about it, but director Kirk Wise described the song as a necessary interlude, intended to keep the audience from, quote, sitting in this trough of despair for so long. If you're a connoisseur of the Disney Renaissance, then you've probably loved a song by Alan Menken. He composed the scores for The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Pocahontas before tackling Hunchback. He went on to write the scores for Hercules and Tangled as well. Menken won various Oscars for the first 4 of those movies, including Best Original Musical Score for Pocahontas and Best Original Song for Colors of the Wind. He shares both trophies with Hunchback lyricist Stephen Schwartz. But out of all the music he's done, Menken is most proud of the work he did on Hunchback. Menken told Slash Film, "It's the most ambitious score I've ever written." Schwartz agreed that it's not just Menken's best work, but his as well. "I think the music is just unbelievably good. I think as a lyricist, I was working at pretty much the top of my form. I have so many people telling me it's their favorite Disney film." When Hunchback came out in 1996, animation had come a long way since Walt Disney's day. But creating the crowds depicted in the film's festival and mob sequences was still a major undertaking. Most of Hunchback was animated the old-fashioned way, with carefully hand-drawn pictures, painstakingly sequenced to create the appearance of motion. This is a lengthy enough process with just one character, let alone hundreds. So for those crowd scenes, the CGI department used then cutting-edge computer software to create several animated character templates. Each was then repurposed dozens of times with different outfits, hairstyles, and accessories. All of these models were then added into the scene and choreographed to respond to the main action. The effect is a crowd that looks like it's made of individuals, created in a fraction of the time a hand-drawn version would have taken. Many Disney villains are so over the top, they're more fascinating or funny than frightening. But there's nothing funny about Frollo. His evil is deeply and recognizably human.
Ease up. Wait between lashes. Otherwise, the old sting will dull him to the new.
The power he seeks isn't over an abstract group. He specifically wants to control Esmeralda and destroy her community. He is so clearly evil that Disney specifically changed his position from archdeacon, as it is in the novel, to judge, so as not to insult the church. The scene in which Frollo threatens Esmeralda inside the cathedral has a distinctly disturbing tone, at least if you're an adult. As the Hunchback filmmakers recall, they thought they were going to have a battle on their hands trying to keep that especially sinister moment in the movie. Surprisingly, they only had to make one change. According to director Kirk Wise, the ratings board was most troubled by Frollo audibly sniffing Esmeralda's hair. When the filmmakers agreed to lower the volume of the sniff, they were given their G rating, a very important thing for a Disney animated movie to have. Although Hunchback is a more serious Disney movie, the animators working on it still made room for in-jokes. There's a reason some of the most brilliant Easter eggs of the last decade are in Disney movies after all. They're good at hiding them. Hunchback has multiple connections to the studio's 1991 mega hit Beauty and the Beast. Most obviously, it reunited directors Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale and composer Alan Menken and lyricist Stephen Schwartz. In honor of their previous project, a special guest makes an appearance early on. Belle can be seen walking through the market square during Out There. Naturally, she's reading as she strolls. Other Disney cameos can be glimpsed in that moment, including the magic carpet from Aladdin and Pumbaa from The Lion King. Maybe don't point that latter reference out to the kids though. Those guys walking there, they've got Pumbaa on a spit about to be roasted. Another in-joke is hidden in plain sight, though only the most hardcore animation nerds will notice it. Phoebus has the honor of being the first modern Disney hero to have facial hair, a tongue-in-cheek poke at Jeffrey Katzenberg. As Kirk Wise recalled, Katzenberg was famously against characters having facial hair. So when he left the studio during production on Hunchback, the filmmakers jumped at the opportunity to express their newfound freedom by giving their leading man a jaw-defining beard. Hunchback remains one of Disney's most ambitious movies. Between the adventurous animation, searing score, distinctly morbid source material, and attempted blend of comedy and drama, the film pushes the limits of people's expectations for an animated movie. Although the studio had been supportive of the film's dark tone during production, the Disney marketing team presented Hunchback as a colorful carnival entreating moviegoers to join the party, and merchandise tie-ins reinforced this upbeat theme. This bit of misdirection backfired, as it set unrealistic expectations for confused and unhappy viewers expecting an upbeat romp. And the film's box office chances also took a hit when Jason Alexander said that though he loved the film, he wouldn't want his young son to see it. Some critics appreciated the mature themes and style Hunchback invokes, but ultimately few were satisfied. Those expecting or wanting a pure Disney experience found it too dark, while those looking for a pure adaptation of Hugo's novel found it far too Disneyfied, with a thematically jarring happy ending tacked on. Still, though not a smash hit, Hunchback did okay at the box office, and some fans swear by it. Wise told /film, "I've had so many people come up to me and say, this is my absolute favorite movie. That makes all the difference in the world." The relatively lackluster box office performance of Hunchback didn't save it from the indignity of a direct-to-video sequel. The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, The Secret of the Bell, was released in 2002. Surprisingly, given critical backlash to their silliness, this sequel focuses heavily on the gargoyles, who help Quasimodo save one of Notre Dame's most illustrious bells. The bell ringer also finally finds love with circus performer Madeline. And a successful 2014 stage musical has stoked rumors that Disney will be making a live-action Hunchback remake in the style of recent efforts like Cinderella and Mulan. Will moviegoers soon be watching Josh Gad swing from cathedral spires? Considering the animated version of Hunchback was maybe Disney's most unlikely film ever, there's no telling what might happen next. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.